Hello, everyone, and welcome to NJBIA 2020 Women Business Leaders Forum. We are so happy to welcome you to Getting to Yes, and this is going to be all about communication and negotiation, something that we all could get better at. So I am so pleased to be here with you today as your moderator. My name is Jackie Lurea, and I am the president of Alexina Consulting, and I specialize in workforce development and diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is my privilege to be here with you to moderate this session, but first, a couple of housekeeping rules and guidelines. After I introduce, or the panelists introduces themselves, just please note that their biographies are all on the website for the event page at NJBIA, and we want to let you know and invite you to use the hashtag NJ Women. So let everybody know on social media that you're here with us, okay? And thank you again. Now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our very esteemed and highly powerful panel. So thank you again for joining us. So can we start with Rina, please? Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Rina Desai. I'm currently a Director of Financial Planning and Analysis at Panasonic. I have over 15 years of experience within finance and accounting, and I'm very excited to be here today to share my experience with communication and negotiation.
All right, thank you so much, Rina. Next, Nikki Sumter.
Hi Jackie, and thank you so much for having me. I'm Nikki Sumter, and I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer for Atlantic Health System. I've been with Atlantic Health now for 4 years, and I have many years of experience on today's topic.
Excellent. And then last but certainly not least, we have Suzanne Suzeni. So Suzanne, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Suzeni. I'm the Regional President for Ocean First Bank. I've been with Ocean First Bank for about a year, a little over a year. And I have over 4 decades of finance background in banking in the local market area.
All right, thank you so much, Suzanne. So ladies, we have a lot of great questions today, and you have a wealth of information, but we want to make sure that we have enough time to get through it all, right? So I'm going to call on you if that's okay. I'm going to ask a question, call on you, and then if you could just give like maybe a 1 or 2 minute answer. And certainly everyone has your contact information, so if they want to continue the conversation with any of us, they can certainly find us on the website, right? So first question, you ready? What is a top negotiation skill for you?
Oh.
So why don't we start? We're going to go backwards. Suzanne.
Yes, top negotiation skill for me is building relationships. I'm in a relationship business. Everything I do is selling a product or a transaction. It's doing business with clients and business customers and helping them succeed financially. So it's really about making that connection and being really authentic and genuine in how you build that relationship. So that's what I would say is my top skill.
Nice, I like it. Nikki, how about you?
For me, I would say listening and anticipating. So it takes really paying attention to what is being said and what's not being said during a negotiation, and certainly anticipating the other person's objections, as well as trying to understand what the common interest could be.
I think sometimes we're all guilty of so anticipating our next statement, right? We forget to listen.
Absolutely.
So that's great advice. Rina, how about you?
For me, it's actually defining what you're going into the table with, like what you are. Make sure you're doing your research. You're showing up to the table, being present. And in order for you to do that, you need to make sure that you're defining what you're going into the table with. So plan it out, prepare it. Do have a plan B in case the conversation doesn't go your way. So, it's a combination of all of them for me.
That's great. And Rina, I have to agree with you with the plan B, because it takes a little bit of pressure off if things don't go quite the way you want them to, right? So excellent. Thank you so much, ladies. Okay, so Nikki, let's start with you on number 2.
Okay.
What are some of the greatest obstacles you had as a woman in negotiating? Some examples, if you can.
Sure. I would say, respect of the person sitting across from me, right? I think we all need to enter spaces with mutual respect and understanding. And I think there have been times where there may not have been the same level of respect one to another. And so that can be difficult. But I think as long as you stay with the facts and state the facts, and it's not necessarily, as a woman, we always feel like we need to state our credentials and, all of those great things to make us feel relevant to be at the table. And I just don't feel that you always have to do that. As you indicated, our bios are online, right? And so when I come to this conversation, it is with the respect of the women that are on this call, but also that we are going to enter into a dialogue that we can, come to a good place in some agreement. So I really believe that mutual respect sometimes holds conversations back. And that has happened to me before. So I think, again, really understanding what the other person is seeking, making sure that we are respectful always goes a long way.
All right, so Nikki, I'm going to ask this question.
Absolutely.
We know you go into a negotiation with your head in the right place, with full respect on the table, right? What happens when the other person doesn't return it or starts out the meeting in not that same place?
Right, don't let your emotions get the best of you, right? I can think of senior leaders that I've had to coach before, and I've been in between leaders when they have been hashing out certain issues. And the person that shows the least amount of respect always trips up because they're entering into a place of emotion at some point. As long as you continue to, have control of yourself, you have a clearer head. And so, it also always becomes an advantage for the person who is being disrespected. So as, again, I would say, try to enter with mutual respect, making sure the conversation is moving in the right direction. But when it doesn't, remain calm and in check of your emotions.
Breathe, right?
Breathe.
When in stress, breathe.
Count.
Rena, how about you?
You know what? One of my biggest obstacles, when I started out in my career was getting out of my head. I think sometimes self-talk, all the thoughts are sometimes a good thing, but for me, sometimes it hurt me, right? I almost had more fear of going with the negotiation, with the conversation, what I wanted in mind, and it was all internally. And when I finally had the courage, build up, the plan, that what I wanted to discuss, and had that conversation, actually wasn't as bad as it happened. So I think for a lot of women, it's the fear of actually having that conversation, that anxiety, but once you actually have it, the other party is welcoming it. They want to hear what you have to say. It's your time to speak up and show up. Those are the two, phrases I'll keep going back to, is just speaking up and showing up sometimes, and just getting those thoughts out of your head.
I love that. Yeah, it is a conversation, right? And if we just go into that mode, this isn't really a negotiation. I'm just going to have a chat. So really put your head somewhere more comfortable for everyone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay. So number 3, in your experience, what would you say are important strategies around communication and negotiating? So Nikki, let's start with you first.
Build rapport. I think you really need to start out building rapport, just as Suzanne indicated. Relationships are important. And if anytime you can start off building a rapport, you're better off, right? Creates that common ground. And then I think state the facts. Remember to always communicate in a factual way and not make it personal. I think those are, if I had to say anything, build rapport, state facts, and try to avoid being too personal in your comments.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. How about you, Suzanne?
I think what's really important, and I think Rena said it earlier, it's prepare, prepare, prepare. You know, going in, knowing exactly the situation, what the motivations are, who you're dealing with, and what their issues are versus their position. And I think sometimes you have to separate issues from the position that they're taking in the negotiation, and then really get into a plan around, you know, all the objections, all the, you know, challenge yourself on all the different obstacles that can come up in that discussion so that you're prepared and confident. I think you have to go in confident, and the more you prepare, the more confident you're going to be. So it's really setting those goals, being clear, planning, and then ensuring that you have, you know, challenge yourself and then get to a timeline. You know, do the ask. It's always good to do the ask at the time that it's appropriate. I think sometimes women don't always do the ask, and we need to ask for what we're, you know, make that first offer, make it, and move on.
Absolutely, Jackie. Suzanne makes a great point. Confidence is everything when you're entering into negotiation. Knowing what you want, and I believe Raina really started out with that. Know what you want, and when you enter with confidence, there, you know, you can only command respect at that point. Not arrogance, confidence, right? And be confident in your ability and what you know, and it'll flow for you. Everyone is going to be a little fearful in some of these negotiations, whether it be a personal matter or a professional matter. Everyone is a little nervous, but conquer that fear. Conquer that fear and try to move through with a plan.
Yeah.
Okay, Suzanne.
Yeah, and just to build on that, being confident is you have to be an expert, right? You need to be an expert. Doing all that homework in advance and that preparation builds that confidence and takes away that anxiety and concern that you have in that discussion, because you're going to have an answer for everything. You're just going to have an answer and get to the result that you're looking for.
Nice. Rena, you had your hand up?
Yes, and even to spin that confidence in a different way, I think it's even your body language, the way you show up to that conversation. I remember when I started off, I'd take the last seat in a conference room. I would condense. My arms would pretty much be attached, right? I wanted to take up less space so I wouldn't be seen in a conversation, just because it was a fear. I was nervous, anxiety. And what I've learned to do since then is take up more space so you're heard, you're seen. And that helps with the confidence, right? And, not even tilting your head as you're listening, because women tend to do that. They want to sympathize with the conversation versus going into the conversation and pretty much leading it. And another thing that I realized, from my lessons learned was women typically end their sentences with a high pitch. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, right? Almost with a question, like I'm doing right now, exactly, right? And when men go into negotiation, they have statements. Their pitch is sustained the entire conversation. So even that body language, I feel, goes hand in hand. That will help with the confidence. And sometimes it's just self-evaluation, really looking at you from the outside and learning that about yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And you brought up an interesting point about where you sit when you enter a room. And let's talk about conferences for a second. I always sit in the back. And the reason I sit in the back is so I can get smart as to who is in the room. So that I can go back when I'm, Suzanne, to your point, getting more educated. So at the end of the day, you can close that deal. You ask for the business. And part of that opening statement and part of that close could be, I saw you at this conference, and take it from there. And you establish an immediate foundation and common place, right? So excellent. So Rena, anything else to add in your experience?
That was pretty much it. I wanted to tie in the body language, your voice, the way you present yourself at the conversation, right? And what the other party's looking at. From handshake, everything matters the second you walk into that door.
Yes, Suzanne.
Yeah, I think sometimes women want to explain everything, right? We go into all the details of why. And I think, to your point, Rena, being crisp in the communication and, bullet points. Think about bullet points. These are the key things that you want to get across. That always is more effective. I had to learn that too, because I tended to give full explanations in detail of all the work that I did in understanding something. And I think when I get crisper in it, I get more effective in terms of how I come across.
Nikki, I am loving your smile. Do you have something to add to that, or are you just agreeing?
I'm agreeing with all of these great comments from these great women. I will add that, there are so many just great pieces that have been written around negotiation and getting to a yes. And I think if you're nervous, concerned, like, how do I ask that question of my leader about a raise? How do I, and I think, Jackie, when you and I were talking, and along with Rena and Suzanne, we were talking about, I think someone mentioned they were going to buy a car, and how people underestimate sometimes what women can bring to the table around even cars, right? Or, do you know what is a V8 engine? Do you know what that is? Do you really need a V8? Do you need a four-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive, right? But that goes back to that research. When you research, you have knowledge you can speak to, and you can clearly articulate what you want and what you need. And so I think when we were talking, I think it was another thing that we brought up, what do you do to disarm the person across from you? And sometimes, and I think I told you, smiling is one of the things that I always do. And people, just because I'm smiling, they think they know what I'm thinking. And so,
you are dangerous.
Yeah. So it is, and then when I talk, it's just like, well, wait a minute, I wasn't expecting that. So, make sure, again, be in control of yourself. Fill up the space, right? Look how I just came closer to the camera. Fill up space. Don't, in conference rooms, a lot of times, women will sit, and, it looks different when you bring yourself in as opposed to when you sit up, and you are just a little bit more commanding. So all of these tips are great tips. I think it's really just important to discover what brings you a level of anxiety. What do you need to work on? What is it that you need to do to move forward? Discover what is holding you back. And then once you write that down, create a plan, and then just move forward.
Yeah.
Yes, Suzanne.
And just to build on that in terms of the smile and positive emotions, I think positive emotions can be very effective, especially for women to use. I mean, we talk about not getting emotional in a negotiation. Maybe that's the negative stuff, right? We don't want to show anger. We don't want to show frustration. We don't want to cry. We want it if things aren't going our way. But we do want to show ourselves and that positive, and women tend to be more communal, which is a great way to get to a win-win, right? When you're thinking about we versus I in a negotiation, use that communal skills that we all have, and really just use positive energy, positive emotion. I think that can be extremely effective because you're building a connection with someone. You're still building a connection.
Right.
Oh yes, Rena.
And I think, right, I think that's very true. And if that positive emotions start fading away since the conversation's not moving your way, I think another big thing is how do you refocus yourself so you know what the task is at hand instead of bringing emotions, negativity into the conversation. So you need to really learn what triggers you. Is it an assertive personality? Is it an aggressive personality? You need to understand that. And how can you overcome it? Is it by just learning how to control your breathing? Simple. Is it those yoga classes that you do that teach you how to, take those deep breaths? Maybe you can bring that back in. Or is it thinking of something, that makes you happy? Or just thinking of what you're trying to get to and continue to be that dreamer? So it's also, how to navigate and keep that positive energy in the conversation.
Rena, you just triggered something for me, that if you're going into, say, a job interview, right, and you have no idea who you're going to be talking to, and you don't know what kind of personality, it's time to go to LinkedIn, right? It's time to try to research that person so you can do your research, get as well educated as you can so you know who your partner in negotiation is like. Are they soft? Are they hard? Are they, what kind of personality? So thank you so much for bringing that to our attention as well. The other thing is, Yeah, we're talking about a lot of in-person negotiations. Can we just take a second to talk about what about things that are via email or things are via telephone? Because those are still, although Zoom and all these virtual meeting places are our world right now, what about those non-visual techniques or ways that we can make sure that we are powerful negotiators and communicators?
That's a great one. So I'll jump in and say I'll use the car as an example, car sales. So I have someone in my family, another woman, which is really, she's very dear to me. She's married, and her husband was like, you know what, you need to talk to Nikki about your next car. And I thought, when did I move into car sales? And I said, well, why did Uncle Rick recommend you talk to me? Why did he think that I could help you? And she said, because he said that you've purchased 2 cars online without talking to anyone. And I said, well, it was really only one, and the second one I purchased over the telephone. She said, well, can you help me out? I said, sure. So she told me what she was looking for, and she felt like she was being overcharged. She did not take her husband because she felt like he just really brings another level of drama to the whole situation. So she wanted to be able to do this on her own. And so he said, well, if you want to do it on your own, you need to just check with someone. So that's why me. She lives in Georgia, and during the pandemic, she said, I went out and I rode around, and it's in Atlanta, and she just really didn't feel like they were going to give her a good deal. And she wanted me to do an internet check. So I did an internet check, and I was like, you want a new car. So everyone has this car that you're looking for. She said, but specifically, I want it to be black, and I want black interior. I said, okay. I did a search. It's there within the next 350 miles, there are at least over 100 cars that meet your specifications. Is that enough? Okay, well, can you call them? So she reached out via the internet and went to their webpage, to get the internet deal. And so she felt like, yeah, they took a little bit off. I said, well, ask for more off. If they are willing to take a little bit off, they may be willing to take a little bit more off. So I reached out to the gentleman and pretended to be her. He had not spoken with her. And I said, well, I really want to get the car at this price. If you're able, I already have financing, if you can get it to this price. He said, well, do you have a trade-in, et cetera. He began to ask me a list of questions. Many of the things that he was talking about, I didn't know because I had not done the research, right? She was the one interested in the car. But what I knew was that it was the end of the month, and they wanted to move some cars. So I said, well, look, I'm willing to, I hear you, but this is all I'm looking for is X, black car, black interior, and I want it at this price. Let me know what you can do. And also, I know you're in Durham, North Carolina, but I need to have the car delivered to Atlanta, Georgia. And so he called me back, and I made sure I wasn't available. And he called me again, and I wasn't available. He sent her a text message, and I said, text him and tell him to reach out to you on this number. And he did, and I said, sorry, I couldn't get back with you. You've been busy, so what did you come up with? He said, well, let's talk about it. I said, no, I don't have a lot of time. What did you come up with? I told you what I was looking for and what I'm willing to pay. And he said, well, let me go back and talk to my manager. I said, you should have already done that, right? I said, you go do that. Call me back. I only have a small window of time. And he came back because I put pressure on him. I said, I have a small window of time. You need to come back and tell me, can you do it or not? Because this is the only amount I'm willing to pay. And he did. All I'm saying is I had confidence, right? We talked about confidence. I knew a little bit about the car, but I didn't know a lot about the car. I knew what she wanted, and I knew that they needed to get rid of some cars. And so it worked to her favor. They delivered it and all of that. I will say, use what you know, and when it's not going your way, you have to pivot. And if pivoting may be, okay, well, maybe I'll have to go $250 or $500 up. She'll be okay. But whatever that pivot is, know what the pivot will be so that you can still get what you want, right? And Suzanne gave a great example when we were getting to know one another. Suzanne gave a great example around one of your teammates coming to you about their career and really was trying to put it all on you. And I would love for you to kind of talk a little bit about that. But you got to own some of your responsibility to stuff.
Yeah, no.
That's all I'll add.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne, and then we're going to go to Irina.
Just to build on that comment, and thank you, Nikki. Yeah, I think in any communication, I think you need to come in prepared, right? I mean, we talked about that so much. What frustrates me as a leader sometimes is that people dump their problem or here's the issue, and they haven't done the work to kind of investigate it. And I think you get to a better outcome when people, especially on a career discussion, hey, this is what I want to do. I mean, they're clear, they've done their homework, they have an objective. And then you can sit down and say, well, what are some of the things that you think you need to do to get to that position? And then how can I support you to get to that position? So I think, just words of advice, I think sometimes women, and I'm going to say I was in that camp early on, you just work, and you think people are going to recognize and you're going to get promoted. Well, you can take charge of that discussion, and you can sit down with your manager, and you can put some ideas on the table. And I think when they see that you're engaged in a path and a journey that you want to take with your career, you're going to get a lot more support because you've already done the planning, some of the initial planning yourself and some of the ideas yourself. So I think we own our careers. We own it. It's not the manager's problem, manager's issue. It's ours. I mean, we own our careers. So that was just my little example of when we were getting acquainted.
I love that, Suzanne. And the bottom line is we have to own our stuff. We have to own all our stuff and be accountable for our stuff, right? And the great managers that I have seen and had experience with say, I am well open to you coming to me with an opportunity or maybe a problem, but please don't come to me without a resolution or some kind of way to troubleshoot it, right? Or resolve it or get to that. So thank you so much, Suzanne. Rena, you want to add to that?
Going back to your original question, how can you do this all virtually in our new way of life, right? And I think taking all 3 points is you would still use the same tactics. Yeah. Define, show up, and be present. And if it's either through email, you feel the conversation or you're just not getting anywhere, pick up the phone and call and kind of get through it, right? Or if you're on a video call and you just feel, I think it's the same techniques you use, just how Nikki said, look at me, I'm leaning in and I'm in the camera, your presence. Everything matters, even if it's the same kind of tactics you should continue to use in any form of communication you're doing when it comes to negotiations.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. We could take it right down to the resume, right? You're applying for a job. You better make sure that resume is tight and that cover letter is tight and to the point and succinct, and you're asking for what you want, but at the same time, make it bubble up what you're bringing to the table, because sometimes your resume is all they're going to see in this negotiation of type, right? So thank you all for that. Okay, so can you give me some insights you feel women experience when it comes to feelings and emotions around negotiation? And I know we touched on this a little bit before, but let's kind of delve into this so we can just address our inner feelings. Suzanne, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, I think we covered a little bit of it before. I think Rena said it really well. Kind of know the stories that are playing in your head, first when you're going into it, because getting control over your own emotions and getting control over yourself will make you more effective and more confident. So we all have these tapes that play in our head, and sometimes they're not the good tapes. They're, fear of failure, fear of this, fear of everything. So get clear about that going into any kind of a discussion. And then again, I think going back to being prepared, if you're prepared and confident, your subject matter, it's so much easier to negotiate more effectively or to communicate more effectively. Tell stories, tell yourself positive stories. And I think, yoga works for me too. Deep breaths, calmness, a little bit of meditation before you go in, because then you're going to really, and visualize it. visualize the positive outcome that you're looking to achieve. And when you see the positive outcome, you will achieve that because you know how to get there. You've already planned for it and prepared for it.
Great. Thank you so much. Rena, what do you think?
So, and I'm, again, a victim of this. I think a lot of women feel that they're either weak or vulnerable when they bring up a conversation. A story of myself that I shared, when we were getting to know each other is flexibility. I took on a new promotional opportunity. My commute had multiplied. I had 2 toddlers at home. It was eating me up that I was choosing between my career aspirations and family. And for a few days went by and I just didn't want to bring anything up about, I have 2 toddlers at home. Does that make me look weak? Does that make me look like that I'm not a strong, this strong employee that they hired? No, that was all playing around in my head. And then, I decided, all right, this isn't going to work. This is either going to, impact my performance if I continue to be unhappy. So I decided to go and network with other mothers in the organization, ask, what do you do? I know you have young children. How are you making, it work? I know you have commutes as well. And through that, I created a plan, went to my leaders, and guess what? They embraced it. They embraced it, and without even asking questions. So all of that self-doubt was all inside my head. The feeling vulnerable and weak, that was, again, all in my head. And it's accepted. And, I think, and that's when I go back to, sometimes if you don't bring it up, no one knows that you need to talk about it, or communicate a topic. If it doesn't show up, if there's not a plan that's proposed, then it's not going to happen. You own your happiness, you own your career, and you own your success. And you need to really figure out how you can bring it to the table.
Thank you. Thank you. Nikki, what are your thoughts?
I totally agree. I think the self-talk and the negative self-talk, right? The, the negative emotions, the fear, the sweaty palms, the, just the fear of failure. I think I've experienced all of that. And I still do. There are times when I wonder, can I do something? And then I remember where I've come from, right? And all of the great things that I've done, and all of the things that I don't know, I know that I can learn. And so, I try to really be positive, but I do have some negative thoughts that routinely creep in. And I try to make sure that I recognize when that's happening and set that to the side so that I can really begin to kind of focus and move myself forward. There are so many things that we all have going on. But I think if we just take a moment, and when we recognize it, we address it and we talk to ourselves or talk to a friend or a colleague or anyone. Look in the mirror, talk to yourself. Don't let anyone tell you can't talk to yourself, just as long as you don't start answering, right? But, look in the mirror. If it's going to help you build confidence, whatever it's going to take, I think there has to be a deep-seated belief that you can move forward. And any little step we can take will move us closer to a yes. And so I agree with both women. It is hard. It is hard sometimes to sit at the table and think, well, I know the answer, but should I talk? Or I know how to close something out. I can get it over the finish line. But should I use my voice? Is my voice what is needed? And so most of the time it's yes, right? And don't let someone tell you that your voice does not matter. Use your voice. Use your voice. Because there is a reason you're in the room, and there's a reason they hired you, or there is a reason that you have been involved in a particular situation. And I think you just try to move forward.
Right. One of the things as I'm listening to all of you is, we have to try as much as we can to keep our emotions, everything in check, and be strong, right? So I'm just thinking of a situation where you're going into a high-powered meeting or you're going into an interview and you're just about to turn onto the street that the meeting is at when we go to meetings again, and a tree has fallen because of the storm, and you cannot get to the meeting, right? You get to the meeting finally, you're not late, but you're frazzled. And I think it's okay to go into that meeting and say, man, am I frazzled? This is what just happened. Because it also gives an aspect of realness and authenticity to us, right? We are human, and I think people will kind of lean into that a little bit and say, all right, she's good, she's a little on edge, but this is why, and give them a reason, because not everything is in our control, right? So, okay, so the next question. And this actually, I'm sorry, did everyone have a chance to comment? Any other comments on that?
Yeah.
Good? Okay, all right. So, first of all, I'd like to do a little reminder to all of our attendees that are listening to you awesome women, is utilize, please, that hashtag. So hashtag NJ Women, and tell them all about the conference and invite them to come on over and join in the fun, because certainly we're sharing some amazing resources here, and you all have been so great. So now I'm really going to put you on the spot, because I know you have a lot of ideas going on in your heads. I would like the last question to be this, and we'll go back to our original order. I'm going to start with Rena. If you could give one pearl to all our attendees and all the listeners out there, just one pearl to take away from this panel discussion, what would it be?
Yeah, so my advice to everyone is you own your success. Define it, speak up, show up, and go get it. Why? Because you deserve it.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. All right, will do. I will do that. Okay, Nikki, how about your pearl?
Yeah, I will end with how I started. Listen, not with the intent to respond, but listen and anticipate. Anticipate, and not with anticipate the question so you can respond, but anticipate the other person's needs, motives, etc., so that you can get to a yes.
All right. I love it. Thank you so much. And then Suzanne, what about you?
I have two. I'm going to share one that is not my quote, but I love this quote, and it's the quote from Dalai Lama. When you talk, you're only repeating what you know. When you listen, you may learn something new. And I think that's what we always want to do when we're engaging with each other. But mine would be just aim high and be confident, and kind of like Rena, because you do deserve it.
I love it. I love it. Okay, thank you so much for those pearls. Nikki, any closing statement about, the conference or whatever it may be about communication, negotiation, before we sign off of you awesome panelists?
I'd encourage every person listening to continue to do research on this topic. There's, as I mentioned earlier, there's some great information that you can just at your fingertips by going to the internet. You can do some searches and find a wealth of information on negotiation. It is an art and a science, and I encourage you to invest in yourself to learn more. You've heard our stories of what we typically lend ourselves to and how we build up. But I would encourage others to just do some more research so that you'll be ready for your next negotiation.
And Nikki, just repeat your title again for us.
I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer for Atlantic Health System.
Okay, so there you go. Reach for those stars and think big, ask big, and close big, right? Nikki,
Right,
thank you so much. Rena, how about you?
It's go to these forums, listen to these panels, get educated, learn, and then, right back to Nikki's point, do the research. And, when these kind of opportunities, especially with WLF and all these type of opportunities and panels that are coming up, listen, right before I go into a negotiation, I'll try to YouTube one, I'll try to Google, I'll listen to it. It's always good to get different perspectives and different tips that, you may not get in an article. Sometimes it's nice to hear real voices. Yep. Real people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Rena, your title again, please?
I'm the Director of Financial Planning and Analysis.
Whew, okay. Reach for the stars, everyone, because they're there to be gotten, right? Suzanne, how about you? Any last thoughts?
About research and continue to learn and really build a network of people that you can go to, just like Nikki did with her, I think it was her friend or family member. I mean, they came to you because build that network. Those other women and other resources, other people are going to be the greatest teachers in this process.
Yeah.
Then also always remember that you're talking to another person and they have the same things going through their head that you do. So
Right.
you don't have one up on you. No one has one up on you. Just bring yourself to the whole discussion and the communication and just be yourself. Be your authentic, real self, because that's the most power you have, the power within. So
yeah. Wonderful. Suzanne, your title?
My title is the Regional President of Greater Philadelphia for Ocean First Bank.
So again, thank you to our panelists. You guys have been amazing, but I would expect nothing less from the powerhouse that is on this call right now on screen. So I thank you all so much. And on behalf of us, and I hope you don't mind that I do this, I want to thank NJBIA for inviting us to present this panel to them, because getting to yes as women business leaders, we need to hone in on those skills. We need to hone in on our gifts, and we need to be succinct. We need to have a goal, and we need to close, right?
Right.
All right. So with that, ladies, I thank you again. Again, hashtag us, hashtag NJ Women, and let's get this done. There's business to be had, cars to be bought, houses to be bought, negotiations to close. So I thank you again, and have a great rest of the conference. Okay, thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jackie.
Jackie.
Thank you.